Okay, we're recording. Camera died, whatever. We're redoing this. So, for a long time now, as long as I've been into guns or I've been watching what goes on in the gun world and making content, especially, I've seen people say the same tired comments over and over and over again of, why don't you just leave California? I'm so glad I don't live in California. I'm so glad my state doesn't have to deal with those laws. And it seems like, fortunately for many people, the fight is winning in certain localities, certain states, but every once in a while, people would make certain comments about, oh, I'm so glad I live in Washington, for example. And now it seems as if these laws in California are spreading. We're going to be talking about things that are going on in Washington. We're going to be talking about what the future might look for, what the big hopes we have are when it comes to this. But first, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Route 66 Shooting Sport Park. If you're down in San Bernardino, California, I highly recommend you check them out. Steel targets, competition shooting, classes from instructors that work there, and very high quality instructors. I took a class with Mike Glover there recently. That was a very cool experience. If you're in San Bernardino or in the area in SoCal, I highly recommend you take the time to go check them out. Thank you for supporting me. So, Washington. I wasn't really super up to date with this. I was fairly busy with some stuff going on in my own life. Just sometimes life gets away from you, and I'm very appreciative that you are all still here. I made a brief comment about it in one of my videos, hoping that some other larger creators that are based out of Washington would make more of a stand and more of a stance on it, not just on various smaller social media platforms, but hopefully use their much larger audience on various other platforms. But it seems as if Washington was able to pass some laws, even though it was something like a 15-to-1 ratio of people voicing their comments against versus people voicing their comments for. It seems as if this one was set to lose. Thank you to all of the left voting, liberal voting, Democrat voting people who thought that the people would have more things to focus on than just guns. Seems as if that's all we get. So ESSB 5078, this was the ban that one of the bans that passed that would affect the ability for you to buy, sell, import, manufacture, all that kind of stuff. High capacity magazines, any magazine over 10 rounds. This does have a grandfather clause, and it takes effect on July 1st of this year. The problem with laws with grandfather clauses is, in my opinion, they're not much better than any law that doesn't have a grandfather clause in it. Because the grandfather clause is honestly worse for us because that allows people to feel complacent. They say, oh, I got mine. I don't got to worry about nobody but me because they got theirs. Now, that's a pretty interesting thing to see because what about your kids? You can't give them to your kids. You can't give them to anyone. You can only do certain things with them. Now, if you have one, you're going to be under more scrutinous eyes from law enforcement that happen to stop you if they ever happen to stop you while you're carrying a gun. So it's not something that is really much better than what we have in California. Now, thankfully, right now, when it comes to court cases to potentially challenge laws like this, we have some stuff going on, but I'm going to talk about those after I get through just the quick bills that did pass. Now, HB 1705 would ban the sale and possession of unfinished frames or receivers completed after 7/1/2019. This bill also takes effect 7/1/2022. So that's pretty interesting how you can ban something that would actually be retroactive and doesn't seem like there's much room for a grandfather clause in there. Also, how do they actually plan on enforcing this? If you never knew that they existed in the first place and you can't seem to track who has them, how do you plan on getting them? It's almost like these laws aren't meant to actually stop anybody from actually doing anything and is all to make you feel as if you're doing something. Feeling like you're doing something versus actually doing something, two very different things. Now, the other one would ban the possession of weapons at off-campus school board meetings and other municipality-owned locations. And that's pretty dangerous. Anytime you allow government-owned facilities, could be parks, could be anything, to be a potential spot for a gun ban, it just adds onto the list of various locations where you might just be wandering around and find yourself breaking the law. Whether those laws should exist, totally up for discussion, right? So, what is the real hope that we have here? Well, for those of you that don't know, in the state of California, we also have a magazine ban. That's why we got those little stubby 10-round mags. That's why you always see those, right? Also, many people were able to possess and acquire magazines in ways that weren't necessarily illegal during a very brief period of time called Freedom Week. We were able to legally acquire those magazines because the law said that anyone that was currently in possession of them would have had to get rid of them. Now, the Honorable Judge Roger T. Benitez said, that's pretty ridiculous. You can't just force people to get rid of their stuff or destroy it or turn it into law enforcement or convert it to no longer be useful. So people were able to have a very brief period of time where they were able to get magazines. Now that case is up pending review by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is currently looking at the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which many people that seem very well educated are saying we might have some sort of idea or we might have a decision from them in June, July-ish. So summer love. Now, this is very far out, right? That would potentially mean that court case could be heard or could have a final decision on it in June, which would be a month before the July 1st of 2022. Hopefully, there is enough ground to stand on for people like the GOA, people like FPC, and various other statewide organizations, Second Amendment Foundation, NAGR. Hopefully, there's enough room for them to stand on currently to file a lawsuit and get some sort of preliminary injunction on this. It's probably not as likely because finding a judge like Judge Benitez is kind of hard, especially in other states. We will see. We haven't seen anything like that, or I haven't seen anything like him in another state where they could kind of abuse some of the methods of going through the courts to get them to see it. If something like that exists, I'd love to hear about that. But it would prevent people from acquiring. It wouldn't prevent people that currently possess those magazines. A lot of p sounds today. So hopefully there's enough room for them to stand on to maybe hold off any sort of decision on the legal matters until we have New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. That's the big hope that a lot of people have in California with the assault weapon ban, with the magazine ban, people in New Jersey, people in New York. A lot of people are waiting on that court case because if that court case changes the rules at which you can actually infringe upon the Second Amendment and what they can get away with and how these judges can interpret stuff and dance around it, if that can be changed, the games would not be able to be played and they would have to or potentially be forced to honor the Second Amendment shall not be infringed, right? It's pretty clear, right? I don't know. So it's a pretty interesting thing going on right now. I hope that people realize how much of a dangerous situation your rights currently are. Your rights don't go away. The Second Amendment doesn't grant you rights. The Second Amendment is just an acknowledgement of your rights on a piece of paper saying what the government cannot do. Currently, the government is doing things that document, that writing on a piece of paper, because that's really all it is, says that you can't do, or says that they can't do to you. Whether you choose to follow these laws, entirely up to you. Whether you choose to help others break these laws, or if you choose to break these laws, entirely up to you. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I'm not going to make you do anything because it's your life. I'm not going to force you to live a way that you don't want to live. But it's up for you to determine how you choose to acquire your freedom. It seems as if companies like PSA and many other online retailers are focusing their efforts on delivering to Washington citizens so that they can get their stuff in. That's pretty cool of them. We will see how this pans out in the future. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.